Winter weather advisories up for the coastal Northeast and northern Mid-Atlantic. Well, what did you expect? That's how the whole winter has played out so far. And it's a battle of models that really haven't been doing very well. The short range models have been doing much better than the longer range models, and that suggests that, well, the snow may not be done yet for some areas. On this Super Bowl Sunday, it is the Joe and Joe Weather Show, brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware. A place to go on a day like today when you've got snow to deal with to clean up. Although the roads are, the paved surfaces are doing a lot better than the colder surfaces. But they got everything you need at Omni at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon. Might not be enough for a snowblower, but not a bad time of year to get a new one as you get toward the end of the season. And if the wheels off your spreader have come off, well, they've got still plenty of those, and shovels, and Mag ice pellets and flakes, Pellido, two of the best ice melt products, snow and ice melt products around there, and of course, tons and tons of rock salt, serving the entire New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, tri-state area and beyond with the lowest prices anywhere. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number, and the website is yes, it is. Very interesting setup that has transpired, Joe, because hold on, Joe, your audio is screwed up. Mine was screwed up. I caught that before. I didn't notice yours. Hold on a second. Let me fix Joe's audio. I don't know why
And
this
see now,
happened. All the
see
settings
now,
all the
and
settings got changed
and
again.
and
Okay,
upstairs now she's blaming me.
okay, that part they heard. All right, that part they heard.
the
um,
The executive producer always blames me. I am always guilty until proven innocent.
yes. So as you were saying, Joe, you were angry because
The NAM led me astray. Up until yesterday, when I was looking at the FOOS runs of the North American model, it was saying liquid equivalent at LaGuardia, maybe 5/100ths, 6/100ths, 8/100ths of an inch. And I said, no big deal. No big deal at all. That probably is going to amount to maybe at most or at worst an inch. And then all of a sudden, late yesterday, and especially the overnight run last night, all of a sudden between 1 o'clock in the morning and 7 o'clock in the morning this morning, all of a sudden it pops up with 2/10 of an inch of liquid precipitation, and a little bit on top of that for the remainder of the morning and for the remainder of this day. And I said, my God, if that turns out right, I may end up seeing at least 2, maybe more inches. I said, nah, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And I wake up this morning, looked out the window, looked out the deck, and Renata said, my, that looks like at least 2 inches, Joe, maybe 2.5. Surprise, surprise, surprise.
well,
And I was so PO'd. I said, yeah, it changed its mind literally at the last minute. It led me astray thinking that we were just going to get a little bit, and we end up with 2. And there are some spots, as you pointed out, Joe, off air, that picked up maybe double that amount.
oh
Crazy.
yeah, oh yeah, and in fact, um, we should right off the bat. I think is probably a good idea. So let's do it right off the bat. Uh, we were sitting here on Thursday. Remember, WPC put out that sort of what we thought was a strange forecast with where they had the heavy snow,
Yes.
and
Yes.
it worked. And they spent the thing is, they should have stuck with that because the next uh,
Right.
the next 2 days they kind of spent their time shifting everything a little bit further to the east and sort of pulling back on some of the probabilities, especially on the probability of at least 4. And it all wound up verifying. That's the funny part of it all. It wound up verifying uh, the way they had it on there for Thursday night. And in fact, just looking at some of the accumulation numbers coming out of Pennsylvania, for example, Allentown getting close to 5 inches, Nazareth getting close to
Right.
6. The chairman, Scott Briller, sending me the public information statements out from a few places. This was like, for example, in Northampton County in Pennsylvania, in Eastern PA, Bangor 6, Nazareth 6. My understanding down in South Central Pennsylvania from one of my snow removal guys that they got 3 inches. Most of it was on the colder surfaces. Bethlehem 5.2, Bushkill Township 4.8, Philadelphia International Airport 0.3, and on Long Island there's every bit of 1 to 3 inches on the ground, and the New York City, I saw Central Park from earlier had just under an inch from what they got. They're probably about that or over it now. But it's a very interesting situation from the standpoint of trying to approach this from a forecasting standpoint because the global models, except the European at the very last minute last night, kind of finally went over to what the short range models were doing, which is and they've been the HRRR, which has really not been a good performer, for some reason has decided that this one was going to gel, and it's been, since it came into its range on those 48-hour runs that they do every 6 hours, it has been really just sort of steadfast on this idea that the upper trough was going to come in Saturday night into Sunday morning, and there would be a very short intermission in some places, and then the ocean low, which is offshore, it's the upper trough is enhancing that ocean moisture, just sort of pulling it back westward, and you can see it on the radar.
Just enough enhancement.
Just enough.
Yes.
And pulling it back to the coast, so they get the whole thing is pivoting around. Now, the interesting part of this equation to me for the later this afternoon and this evening, and if you're talking about being a nowcast event, this is probably as good, probably one of the better ones, is the fact that now you're going to have this upper jet that's going to come into play while all of these little things are sort of moving around. And it's going to be interesting to see how that plays, because I think we're going to see this sort of, some places are going to wind up like last night again. There's going to be some upside surprises with whatever happens during this afternoon and evening, especially from New York City east. And there's probably going to be a few places that are going to be sitting around saying, well, where is this second surge? So it's a forecasting nightmare in a sense, because you're just sort of left at the mercy of what's happening on top of you. But nonetheless, it's there, and we're watching it. By the way, since we had that little audio problem at the beginning of the show, we should mention that the website for omnitruevalue.com is.
You just said it.
Right. Well, you need to say it.
omnitruevalue.com.
Right.
Yes.
All right. So Joe Rayo is feverishly monitoring the chat board, awaiting your every post and your every question or comment. If those of you who are watching down from the New Jersey shore who are saying, well, we didn't get very much, if anything at all, you're going to have to wait now for the second area to sort of pivot back from the east, and then the upper trough pivoting in from the west, and we'll see where this takes you during this afternoon as this really weird event, because it is strange. As I've said many times, Mr. Rayo, the big ones, you work harder for these smaller ones than you do for the bigger ones. So let's go right to the radar. And this is the part that the global models missed. All this stuff down off North Carolina and off the Virginia coast, some of these echoes. Now, look, the bulk of that the heavier stuff is never going to make it back westward. But the upper trough is now, kind of pivoting, this area that runs down all the way from Maine down into South Carolina is starting to, you know, ever so slightly shift to the east, and the area on offshore is kind of filling in between, and you're going to see this whole thing just sort of pivot around for this afternoon and get enhanced a little more. Meanwhile, the upper jet is the main jet is still pretty far to the west. This is where this is the difference, by the way, Joe, between what happened the last time and what happened this time. Because the last time, all of this wound up coming together. Remember, we had that renegade, the Arctic front with that renegade snow that came in early, and then we waited for the coastal low to develop and explode, and that filled in all the gaps in between. And because the upper trough was in a much got into a more favorable position to do that. This time around, it's not going to get into a favorable position until it's further to the east. But it's the same puzzle pieces. It just this is one of the options where it turned out a bit differently.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking back, Joe. This is a Super Bowl Sunday, as you mentioned, and if memory serves me, last year on Super Bowl Sunday, we had almost the exact same, maybe not the exact same setup, but we had the exact same situation where many of us awoke to snow and had to dig out from a few inches before heading out to our respective Super Bowl parties. And it looks like that's going to be the same story again today. Although I might point out also where I am on my wooden deck, we had all of 2.5 inches of snow. But on my driveway, the top half of the driveway, that part of the driveway nearest to the house, has hardly anything. It's all blacktop. But as you progress down toward the street, that's where you see the snow begin accumulating. And down at the very bottom of my driveway, I'd say we have every bit of 2 inches. So it all depends upon where you are and how you measure it. Paved surfaces obviously didn't get as much of the colder surfaces, but we all have on the ground right now, I think, a lot more snow than what we were bargaining for 24 hours ago. And I'm kind of sad because we had just about gotten rid of the 4 inches that we had received from the last event, the main event from 2 weeks ago. I would say about 85 to 90% of that snow gone. And now nature has come along to replenish the supply, and now we have a fresh coating of snow to deal with right now.
And that's going to be gone by the time we get to the end of the week anyway. But
Oh yeah,
no
yeah.
matter. The satellite, by the way, you see the gap in between is closing, and that's the upper, the lead trough that's come eastward. And then, of course, you've got the main upper trough that's swinging down through the Great Lakes. And then you got all this moisture that's come up from the Gulf of Mexico running just offshore. Again, the big difference was the last time, adjust this west by a couple of 100 miles, or less than that, actually, probably about 100 or 150 miles. And we'd be sitting here going through another snowstorm this morning. But that is, that was last time. This was this time, and it's going to take a little while before it gets out of the way. We will eventually see all of this end, and then of course there's very cold air. That was another thing, by the way, that happened last night. I was watching the temperatures last night, and they fell a whole lot faster than I thought they would. They really did. I woke up at 5, little before 6 this morning. I noticed the 5. It was snowing at Central Park and 32. And Poughkeepsie was moderate snow, as a matter of fact. By the way, I've got the radar up. This is remember when they made the radar switch at the Weather Service, and we were all complaining about it. Well, they fixed up a few things, Joe, and it actually shows up a lot better if you go in. If you haven't gone for a while, if you click on the 3 dots, it'll give you some options here to adjust the opacity and the state lines and so on, and you can make it look decent. So it actually looks pretty decent. I have the Fort Dix radar up at the moment, and I just moved it by accident, which I didn't want to do, but it's done it anyway. Now we're going to the Upton radar. And there you have, the darker greens, looking at where probably it's snowing a bit harder. Obviously it's not going to get the areas out to the west, but we can jump around a little bit. I'll go back to the Fort Dix radar, and you can see there's still, there's plenty of precip that radar echoes anyway that go fairly far to the west into eastern Pennsylvania, and we're in this lull at 11:15 Eastern time this morning. where the precip is kind of a little more blotchy. Some areas getting it a bit steadier than others. But the again, the short range models have done really well, so they're all saying it's going to pivot around and pick up. And looking at the radar loops and everything else, I think we can loop this. I haven't even tried to loop this. Let's see if this works. Uh, it's going to have to start loading all its pictures. And you can see the loop going along. It's a little slower, and there's some speed action that I could add to it also. But this is telling us that there's some more snow to go. So for you folks, if you're watching in South Jersey, that southern edge will start to fill in. It's all this stuff that's back here in Southwest Jersey moving northeastward, but the southern edge should start to fill in as that area pushes closer to the coast. And you'll make up some of this in the second half, which will be coming later during this afternoon and into the first part of tonight.
Yeah, and right now, right here in Putnam Valley, Joe, at the home base, we have steady, albeit very light snow. I woke up at about 3 o'clock in the morning and looked out the window, and it was snowing pretty good. I mean, I said to myself, that the most recent version of the NAM, I said, darn it looks like it's going to be right, because I was steady light to maybe even moderate snow coming on down and sticking and accumulating to many of the colder surfaces. And by the way, in terms of the fall in temperature, I was in Throgs Neck yesterday visiting my mother and my sister. When we got in the car to come back here at 7:30, it was 51 degrees. It was still quite mild. When we got to my house an hour later up here, the temperature gauge in the car had indicated 41. And I said, my goodness, what a rapid drop in temperature. That cold air is coming on down and coming in from the north. And the temperature really was indeed, as you just mentioned, flying on down. And it certainly was cold enough to start or to allow accumulating snow to occur in the after midnight hours this morning.
Right. And when you're in a situation like this, also with you're watching the status of the temperatures and everything. I kind of decided that everyone's asking about, well, what about roads and everything and paved surfaces, and it's always a little bit of a dicey proposition trying to figure it out. But I've been watching the temperatures. The temperatures themselves are really going to be also a function of how heavy is the precip, because when the precip does come down harder, it cools the bottom of the atmosphere. So you have a lot of good vertical motion going on, a lot of lift. So you wind up cooling the bottom part of the atmosphere. So what happens is when the precip gets light, the temperature wants to go up, and it pushes up toward the freezing mark. But when you have the intensity, you start to drop back into the 20s. The other thing is that you do have colder air that is to our north that's slowly draining southward at the same time. So, for example, right now, White Plains is at 28. So with light snow, a mile and three-quarter visibility being reported at 11 o'clock. Terrytown is 29. Up the Hudson Valley at Chappaqua, it's 29. You go down further south, for example, on Long Island, north of the Long Island Expressway, temperatures are closer to 30. You go south of the Long Island Expressway, and they're closer to 32. So then the ocean starts to play into this. And down in New Jersey, the 32-degree line seems to have worked its way down to about Route 195. And then you head down further south, and it's a couple of degrees warmer, above freezing, 33, 34. So it's not going to take very much. The winds are north or north-northeast. It's not going to take it. They're not going to go. These numbers are not really going to go anywhere today. So if snow does, once snow does pick up in some intensity during this afternoon in places, you're going to see these temperatures start to edge down to 31, 30, and maybe even to 29 or 28. And of course, once you get past 3 o'clock in the afternoon, just to make the sun angle people happy, after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when the sun starts to get low enough in the sky, then you're going to probably start to see the snow accumulating on some of the warmer surfaces. Let's put it that way. So a lot to figure in terms of what we're going to get additionally. Joe, I found that the WRAP model, I've been looking at the WRAP model on Pivotal Weather, It's
right?
it only goes out 21 hours, but it's been really good in terms of us looking at its temperature profiles and also looking at what it's doing for this afternoon and this evening. So it does produce another few inches in areas. It's not a large area, but it does encompass Long Island, New York City, central New Jersey. Slightly lower amounts when you get to South Jersey, but it still produces a couple of inches there. Produces maybe another inch or so, inch or two up by you, going further north, and that it seems to have done a pretty good job. And the HRRR also, and the NAM to its extent, if you can just kind of get, it still attempts to throw these squirrely runs in there in between sometimes, or even on the main run. You just have to try to figure out which is the squirrely one and which it isn't. But the consistency has really been with the ultra short range mesoscale models, and the globals, the GFS in particular, just it just it has not been able to see what's happening. The European didn't see it until started picking up on it yesterday afternoon when it had when it was putting out its precip, total precip. It seemed to make more sense. And then I noticed on the in-between run that it kind of matched up pretty well with the short range. So uh, we'll uh, we'll just keep going with what we got for the rest of the day. And here's the GFS, by the way. I'll bring that up for you. Uh, the uh, the problem with the
We thank, by the
GFS.
way,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
we thank Leon Probitz. Leon Probitsky just hit super chats, and we thank him very much. He's got like a Valentine's. The animated icon shows it almost looks like a I don't know, kind of like Tweety with a heart, beating out from the center of his chest. So thanks very much, Leon, for your Valentine, your pre-Valentine super chat here.
Yes, thank you, Leon. We see the GFS. I don't know. It doesn't seem to recognize what's going on in between that surface wave that's out at 36.6 and 70.5, and the upper trough that is swinging through the Great Lakes. It's got this is measurable precip between now and 1 o'clock, and then it's got it all off, shows almost nothing between 1 and 7, and it actually even has rain. So it's really it just doesn't seem to be handling this very well. And then of course it all pulls away to the northeast. We're going to be very cold tonight, very cold tomorrow and tomorrow night. Tuesday, the high sort of rebuilds back over Lake Huron, so that would delays, I think, the warm up a bit. But we should, I would suppose, get back into the 30s on Tuesday, and then I think we need to pay attention to this for the end of the week, Joe, from a different standpoint, because we've got a storm that's coming out of the southern North Texas, southern Oklahoma, that's going to develop. This is probably going to be kick off severe weather season across the deep south, and that low intensifies as it heads into southern Illinois. Obviously, it's going to go to our west. You can see those southerly isobars, and a lot of those southerly isobars with a big high offshore. I think this could be a pretty decent wind. Well, decent's probably not the right word, but this could wind up being an interesting wind event for later Thursday night into Friday morning until the front goes by, because the gradient ahead of it gets awfully tight. The low gets down to
Right.
low 980s up in upstate New York near Plattsburgh. The gradient gets really tight. Looks like we'll get into some heavy rains. Might even see a rumble or two. Hear a rumble or two of thunder Thursday night into Friday morning till the front goes offshore. And then the gradient's somewhat tight for a little while after the front goes by. So we might have some wind issues here at the end of the week. And notice across the deep south, this is not the radar. This is actual generated precip, and it's rather large as far as precip amounts are concerned, with that front swinging eastward, particularly in Alabama, in Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, and eventually into western North and South Carolina until the front moves out sometime during Friday morning, and then it goes goodbye. SPC, Joe, SPC, you know how we like to use that rule where if it shows up in the long range, in their long range outlooks, it's a pretty good idea to pay attention. Obviously, no thunderstorms forecast today, but they actually had this starting in their day 6 forecast. So they've been on this early, and they'll bring up the day 4 through 8. And you'll notice on day 4 they have already a 15% of risk in northeast the northeast quarter of Texas, southeast Oklahoma, southwestern Arkansas, northwestern Louisiana, and then on day 5 it moves into.
That would be for.
Go ahead. I'm
That
sorry.
would be for Wednesday. Day 4 would be Wednesday, and day 5 would be Thursday.
Thursday into
correct?
Friday. Day 5 is Thursday into Friday. They have a 15% or would be a
Right.
slight risk for Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, most of Tennessee, and a good chunk of the state of Arkansas. And then predictability too low for Friday into Saturday, so that might cover the eastern part of the Carolinas when the front moves offshore. I would not be shocked at all if we wind up seeing an enhanced risk when we look at this tomorrow or Tuesday for the two areas that are being indicated in their risk zones.
Right. Well, it's in the back of their mind, certainly. And again, it doesn't happen too often, especially at this time of the year, for goodness sake, where the Storm Prediction Center people go beyond 3 days in making any kind of outlook. It always is those 3 words: predictability too low. But the fact that they've gone for a day 4 and a day 5, that's most unusual for the month of February.
Yes. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But you know what? We're getting closer. We're getting closer to March, and we know that March can produce some big severe weather events in in severe weather land, and it might occasionally does appear as we get into the latter part of February, depending on whether you get into a warmer pattern or not, which we are going to do. So let's start with the latest HRRR model, which starts to re-enhance that precip here late in the afternoon. You see it here, that band running from southeastern New Hampshire, eastern half of Massachusetts. So it disappears. Although I think I think it's even underdoing it with respect to what's on the radar right now. But it dries up for another hour or two, and then the ocean low gets involved, the upper trough to the west gets involved, and it gets enhanced again. And this could produce another couple of inches for some folks. And then it pivots to the coast. Takes a while to get out of the way. This is at 6 o'clock this evening, and it's still snowing in New York City, Philadelphia, coastal New Jersey, Long Island, southeastern New England, Rhode Island, out to the Cape, all the way down through Delaware and the Delmarva Peninsula into eastern Virginia. This is at 7 o'clock tonight. The back edge, it's all out of northern New Jersey and just about all out in the Hudson Valley. But it takes a while for it to get out, Joe. Look at this. This is at 9 o'clock tonight. It's still snowing on Long Island and in most of Connecticut and Rhode Island. And it's not till maybe 10 or 11 o'clock that it finally starts to pull away. And even over eastern Long Island, it's hanging on. This is at 4 in the morning. It still hasn't completely gotten out of the way. So there's still, like as I said, I think there still might be some surprises with respect to this before it's all said and done.
I haven't even had a chance yet to look again at the I'm doing it right now. The Foos, the 12Z Foos. Now at Albany, excuse me, at LaGuardia. I get this off of the Albany website here. They're giving, Joe, from 7 o'clock this morning to 1 o'clock this afternoon at LaGuardia an additional 4/100ths of an inch.
Right.
And then from 1 o'clock to 7 o'clock, an additional 1/100th of an inch. So that would suggest maybe another half inch if you want to go straight 10 to 1.
Yeah.
For snow. Of course, we're already midway or halfway through that first period, and again, it's coming down where I am, steady but very light. So I'm not. Well, maybe we might put on another maybe couple of tenths of an inch on top of what has already fallen. But I think one thing that's going to work against the snow now is that all of this fell during the overnight, so it was very readily clinging and accumulating to colder surfaces. Now the sun is up now. We can't see it obviously because of the cloud cover, but the infrared and ultraviolet radiation is getting through the cloud cover and will work in tandem with especially paved surfaces to preclude any additional accumulation, at least on paved surfaces, and maybe even to a small degree on the colder surfaces as well. So it may not be quite as easy or quite as readily accumulating. And again, I know how you feel about the mention of sun angles, but
All right.
one thing you do have to mention is that the angle of the sun now is much higher. We were getting no help from the sun whatsoever during December and through a good part of January. Here we are now in mid-February, and believe it or not, I was thinking about this yesterday. The angle of the sun now is approximately the same altitude as it is in late October. So it is getting a bit higher, and that altitude is helping to a small degree when you're trying to clear away snow at this time of the year.
Yeah, after 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, though, the sun's low enough in the sky that you start to see the snow accumulating on most, if not all, surfaces, and certainly once you get past sunset, particularly with the temperature drops down to the upper 20s. By the way, the HRRR, as we said, has been doing a pretty good job. It actually gives. It looks like I'm just kind of eyeballing it. It looks like it gives another 0.15 to 0.2 of an inch of liquid total between from now till the end of the event. And on Long Island, it gives another 2 to 3/10 and another 3 to 4/10 on the east end, and also for southeastern New England, from southeastern Connecticut, eastern half of Massachusetts on eastward, and even in southern New Jersey, another tenths to 0.15 that comes in during the late afternoon and evening. So there's I think there's an argument to be made that could even be a little bit underdone based on what's on the radar at the moment. So let's take it out longer term. I have a couple of thoughts on that, and that is, well, obviously we've got a pattern flip that's happening. So we only have out to the next 9 days on the GFS. And of course, we've got this big storm that later this week that's going to be heading for the eastern. Actually, it winds up going even a little bit further east of the eastern lakes. It takes a track, as we said, southern Illinois to Lake Erie, and then on up the St. Lawrence Valley. Then the next shot of colder air behind it, which is not especially cold. It's not like the Arctic air that we've been dealing with. There's some sort of Arctic front that comes through, or a polar front at the very least. There's a low that the GFS moves across the lakes around the 19th, and it gets a little colder behind that. Then that goes out. Then we go back to the southwest flow with another system moving across southern Canada. So it kind of looks relatively benign, at least through the 22nd. And I'll check the upper air. Let's take a look and see how much of that we have. So we're out to 210 hours. And yeah, it's sort of a flat zonal flow here. If we take our trough in the east now, of course, obviously that lifts out. The next one actually doesn't drop down off the west coast. If it was off the west, the next trough dropping down is in the Rockies and Plains. So the trough axis is probably at around 95 or 100 west. It still puts us in a bit of a ridge position, although most of the ridging is actually offshore. Then we get these shots that come in. The flow looks like it goes zonal around day 9, and I can't really see beyond that. The one thing I did notice, Joe, in the longer range on the earlier runs was that toward the end of the month, the trough looks like it may want to come back into the east, maybe not as strongly as what we had, but I'm looking at the old run now, and we'll go out to the longer range. The older operational was sort of like, but the Mrs. Ann Sambles, who we always, defer to in these situations in the long range because she often knows best every 6 hours, has a slightly different look when you look out forward. Give me a little time here, just trying to load the maps.
Just seeing on the longer range maps, just to see that closed upper low over the southwest kind of reminds me of the old days, Joe, with the models we used to work with back in the 70s and 80s that always had a difficult time in whenever we had one of those closed lows in the southwest of opening those darn things up and kicking them eastward. They always seem to sit there for an eternity. um,
Yes, they would just spin
back
away.
then.
Sometimes they would spin away and send out pieces, little
Right.
pieces that will move across the Gulf States, and you'd get these, sort of little storm systems that gave you a few inches every once in a while, or they wind up passing to your south. And I had to go back 2 runs because for some reason the 6Z run didn't want to load, so I'll just look at the 0Z and samples. Uh, Come on, load already. That circle of death gets you here. I've been trying to preload these ahead of time, but I didn't have any time this morning to deal with that, so my apologies to our studio audience. Have we got 100 likes yet?
No, we're far from it. We're
Oh,
at 57 right now.
all right.
Of course, we only have 161 people. I think a lot of the people who are watching right now are the real diehards. We usually get a larger number on a Sunday morning, but again, this is Super Bowl Sunday, and so I guess a lot of people are making preparations, or maybe a lot of people are outside shoveling, Joe, getting rid of the snow that fell from last night or this morning.
That could be. That could be. We're into March 1st, by the way, on the last day now of the long range, and you can see it's not an overly cold flow. It's probably more seasonal than anything else. But there's no deep trough in the west, and there's no strong ridge in the east. So if you're thinking that winter is over, that I would argue, Joe, that there's an we're at this point now. Obviously, this week is gone, so that takes us to the week of the 20th, and that week doesn't look like there's going to be anything threatening at this point. So there is time for something to happen in the first part of March. After the first half of March, you have to have every day that passes after the first part of March, you have to really have a really dynamic cold pattern for it to happen. I just wonder though, with the state, I think this winter has been really controlled more by the state of the polar vortex than than um, than some people might give it credit for. And I'm going to bring up the 10 millibar so we can take a look at what's going on up there. And I also believe that what we've been seeing is this sort of ebbing and flowing in the polar vortex where it stretches for a while, and when it stretches northwest southeast, which has put us in a very cold, in a very cold scheme, and then it kind of ebbs and it tightens up, and we get these relaxation periods. And I believe that right now we're in one of these relaxation periods. And in fact, take a look at on the new run on the 216 here. So this is day 9. So suddenly, and I'll roll it back just a little bit. Come on, come on, let's go back a bit.
Come on.
There we go.
Technology, Joe. You got to
So
remember.
right now we're
Yeah.
actually in the process where the polar vortex is actually pulling up further north. There's not much of a trough there in the eastern part of the United States. So if you follow the flow, it would tell you that the coldest air is actually going up into eastern Canada, and we're kind of sitting in no man's land for this coming week. But as we go out to day 8, at least as far as we have, which is day 9, the vortex actually migrates back down south to the northern part of the Davis Strait, and then all of a sudden you've got this flow that goes from what it has now, which is the first arrow. Instead, you've got this flow that might want to bring colder air down in the longer term toward the end of the month and the first week or so of March. So I will argue that yeah, we're in this relaxation period, which is very normal in a winter, especially if you've been in a pattern that's lasted about 6 weeks. It pauses, you get this break, and the question always is it a break that's going to last on its own for 6 weeks, or is it something that is going to be short and break down? And if you look at this on the new run, that says to me that breaks down, and maybe we go back to what we had for a short period, one last gasp from setting up maybe during the last week of February and taking us through the first few weeks of March. This looks like the January pattern on the polar vortex.
It does. It does. And, in terms of March, Joe, I always considered St. Patrick's Day as
Yes.
the cutoff day. I mean, like anything that happens, after St. Patrick's Day, you need to have not a perfect storm, but you need to have a lot of the factors all in place to get your snowfall. Before then, yeah, it could happen, but it has been a weird year so far. And according to what I looked at from the Climate Prediction Center, they're predicting almost, to use one of your terms, Joe, they're almost looking like into the first half of March. They're predicting blast furnace type conditions, not just for the eastern United States, but for much of the United States as we go toward the end of this month and on into the first half of next month. So it would seem that we're going to have, may I call it a winterlude, or maybe a winter mission before maybe we rev up and have one more go at it, perhaps later in March or maybe even into the early part of April.
They've had a lot of curveballs thrown at them because they haven't exactly been hitting.
Oh
They
yeah,
haven't been they have not been hitting many home runs uh, in their longer range. Even some of the 8 to 14 and 6 to 10 day outlooks have been gotten flipped on its ear. Now here's an interesting development in the teleconnections, and this is from the overnight guidance at the 0Z guidance. And the PNA, the Pacific North America Index, which actually in hindsight has been a very good indicator of everything that's happened this winter. So this is the one to really, I think we need to focus on. And we've seen a bit of a change now in the longer range, Joe, and that change starts actually after this next storm, which is kind of interesting because maybe that storm sets the ball in motion for other things to happen across the atmosphere that may take another week to play out. But if you just follow the Pacific North America Index, when did it go negative? It went negative. Well, after Thanksgiving, we had this little positive streak here, but right around December 10th, it crossed the neutral line and went negative. And of course, we know what happened there. The last 20 days of December were very warm. Then, right after New Year's, what happens? It started this ascent to the neutral line and then went positive and basically stayed one standard deviation positive for the rest of the month of January into the first part of February. In fact, if you think back, we saw the PNA actually was forecast to go negative at the beginning of February, and it wound up being delayed because of the January 28th, 29th
right,
storm doing whatever it did to
right.
the upper atmosphere. Well, take a look now what's going on. It goes negative this week. So that kind of explains what we've got. Right after it's going negative. And it goes slightly negative, but notice it doesn't stay negative. A lot of the members go positive here. I'm going to guess that's probably around the 22nd or 23rd. So we may, if this continues, if this trend continues on the long range guidance, that we may be going back to a positive Pacific North America index. And that the teleconnection of the PNA is basically just measures pressure changes around North America and out in the Pacific and to a certain extent out to the Atlantic off the southeast coast. And when it goes positive, it's telling you that you have a ridge in the western part of the United States, which means it's warm there and relatively storm-free and dry. And you have a trough in the eastern part of the United States, which means that it's colder and colder than it can be colder, and it also, depending on other factors, can be stormier. So that to me is an interesting development that the PNA is starting to signal that maybe it's going to go positive again, and that opens the door, I think, to a window from. I'll just throw some dates up on the air, up in the air. So let's say from February 25th, 26th to maybe the first week or two in March. If it's something that's gonna be a little bit more than just a short range blip. And we'll take a look at the others. The NAO has been a complete non-factor this winter. It's so funny how this happens, and I know that the North Atlantic oscillation, which when it goes negative, is one that the blocking fans all go nuts over, and I would just always point out the fact that blocking is somewhat overrated unless you have it's great for the big storms if that's what you want, but it can oftentimes suppress things way to the south. Well, the NAO went positive. It was negative through much of while the PNA was negative. It was also negative. It went positive when the PNA went positive. It kind of stayed positive. Occasionally went down to neutral, but pretty much stayed positive all along. And it stays positive, although there are members toward the end of the month that go down closer to the neutral line. So I don't know if that means that the NAO may want to try to go negative in March. It likes to go negative when we get into the spring months a lot of the time, which means if you relish the marine layer in the Northeast and Northern Mid-Atlantic states with that northeast wind and low clouds for days at a time and gloom and doom, well, root for the NAO to go negative and you'll get it. But a couple of interesting things to look at, I think, with regards to the teleconnections.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
Oh, Joe. You all of a sudden you just cut right off, and I'm saying to myself, does he have any more to say about the teleconnections?
No, I know. I tend to get.
And the NAO and the
I understand. I tend to get winded sometimes. I get that.
Yes. You know what also did very well with this situation we had, which is ongoing right now, continues to go ongoing, was the plumes.
Yes.
The plumes. I remember checking them out last night, and the plumes did very well. In fact, if you look at the current plumes, the most recent output from the plumes, that if you believe them at face value, Joe, this snow will continue in varying degrees, not only through the end of the day, but maybe right on through much of the overnight hours tonight. I don't know whether or not you want to tend to believe that, but the plumes are saying that this snow ain't ending. Now, I saw Keith James, and thank you, Keith, for hitting super chats. Keith's comment was, hey, here in Ramsey, New Jersey, the sun is out. It's still snowing, but the sun is out. Yeah, that happens sometimes, but I don't think we're going to be seeing much in the way of any breaks in the cloud cover for much of the region through the remainder of the day and on into at least part, if not all, of tonight, Joe, because, again, in a small way, the NAM is still predicting that we're going to get some flaky weather through much of the rest of this day. And now the plumes also coming up with not only flakiness for the rest of the day, but maybe into part of tonight. So this thing may not be over with by any means. We may not get all that much more, but the flakes are still going to be flying, it appears, for a while.
Did you happen to see how much snow they gave to some of the stations there running, locally?
Well, for example, they gave White Plains. See, it's hard now because they kind of have the snow amount here, and as we move on through the rest of the day and into tonight, it starts going down again. So I guess what it's suggesting is that we're at the peak, or we're close to the maximum amount right now in terms of snowfall, and it's just that the lingering precipitation, the lingering snow, may continue for a little while longer. I'm just going to take a look one more time here. I'm looking at the 3-hourly snow. Interestingly, on the 3-hourly snow for White Plains, it's at, for 7 a.m., it's at 0.41. Then it drops to right about where we are now at 10 o'clock to 0.21. But then what happens? It bounces back up for 18Z or 1 o'clock to 0.32, and it remains near 0.32 right on through 7 o'clock this evening.
Right.
And then after 7 o'clock, it takes a steady drop downward.
Right. Well,
so there you go.
The mesoscale models, the RAP, the HRRR, all say that that's going to be the case. I mean, with respect to some additional precip coming. Timothy Veltman, always quick on the uptake, sent me the Eastern Pacific Oscillation, or the EPO, which, as you know, I have said, Joe, give me a negative EP for a snow lover. Give me a negative EPO, and I'll deal with everything else. I'll take my chances with the rest of them. Well, here's one of the teleconnections that is gives you if you're looking for more winter weather, or one last gasp of winter weather as this pattern goes away for a while. it does stay positive for much of the next couple of weeks. It does tend to trend down toward a little more toward the neutral line toward the end of the forecast period. I can't really read the dates on the darn thing. It looks like around the 27th, 28th, if I'm reading that correctly, that we see it go down toward the neutral line. You want if you want winter to come back, you want it how it is back here at the start, where the EPO is sitting at a reading between -1 and -2. And anytime when the East Pacific Oscillation is negative, it favors cold air to spread out across Canada and into the eastern part of the United States. As long as the troughs are in, where they're supposed to be. But it's not 100%, but you definitely want you want that East Pacific Oscillation. You want it down in the neutral to negative. Certainly, you would want it down at least at the neutral range, and you want it a bit lower. But you know what? We might see this adjust over the next couple of days. This is only based on one forecast period back 12 hours ago. Perhaps when we look at this tomorrow, you might see it differently. So at least for now, the EPO is saying that temperatures are not certainly it's not going to get very cold like we had. But it may just be more seasonal from that standpoint, or maybe even a little bit above average when you take all the days and add them up and you do all the math. But we'll watch the EPO and we'll see what it does as far as the longer term is concerned. So
okay, well, I would have thought that we would have if we were going to have a flip back to colder weather. I mean, if you recall, the Climate Prediction Center, not doing it anymore, but they were predicting last week. At first, even a chance for significant snowfall again here for Friday into Saturday of this upcoming week. Then they backed off and pushed that to our north because obviously it's going to be much too warm for any kind of snowfall. But it's still just north of that approaching front, or that front that's trying to come on down from the north. There's some rather cold air,
yes,
which may very well, with the frontal passage early on Saturday, may very well push the temperatures plunging down again after a bit of a rise again later on this week.
Oh, and now Timothy Veltman that was the GFS, by the way, on the East Pacific Oscillation. Guess what he just sent me?
The
The
European version, or
and of course, if
I had a feeling.
Yes, and here's the European, which has a much more favorable argument here for this being temporary, because we go positive, we go slightly negative, we go positive again. Again, it's hard for me to read the dates, but I'm going to guess that this is probably after, say, February 22nd or 23rd. Look what happens. The EPO goes negative by 1 standard deviation. So the European is arguing that this is going to be a temporary flip, and that we are going to see things go. Oh, did I put it up on the screen? Did I have it there? I thought I did. I'm sorry. Yes, I did. Okay, let me see. I try to monitor everything. It's hard for me to monitor messages, but when he sent the first one and I saw the thing blinking, I said, let's see what he's got. And he's got the European. Thank you, Timothy. Poor guy striking out with all these storms up there in Albany because he's still behind. He's still way behind Atlantic City as far as total snowfall is concerned for the season.
I'm looking also at the latest visible satellite imagery, and I can see that I can see what Keith James is mentioning in Ramsey, New Jersey, where he says he can see the sun. I could see on the latest visible that there are swaths of thin spots that are appearing over portions of northern New Jersey, and I suppose one of those is over Ramsey right now, and that's what's giving. That is a nice hole in the clouds over central Pennsylvania, but I doubt very much that's going to get it anywhere close to us in the ensuing next few hours. So for a while, I think we're going to see things kind of wind down a little bit.
Yeah, no, we're in this lull period. We're in between. We're in the models actually showed this happening between 9 and 10 a.m. till about noon, and then after that, which we're approaching now, after that we're going to see the radar start to get enhanced again, and that'll carry us through the afternoon and into this evening. I'm just giving the radar a flip here off screen. Yeah, the stuff's off.
Yeah, the latest radar I'm looking at shows that we're kind of like in a hole right now.
Yeah,
as you just mentioned. And that's what the plumes were indicating, that there would be a distinct dip by around 10 or 11 o'clock, but then we would come right back up again by noon or 1 o'clock this afternoon, and then level off and stay that way with steady, very light snow through the balance of the day. But again, the fact that I mentioned at least through at least the next several hours with the angle of the sun, that may actually help to keep any snow from significantly accumulating. But as you said, after 3 or 4 o'clock, once the sun gets lower in the sky again, then we start reverting back to snow beginning to accumulate to a small degree. So it's not, if you're a snow lover and you enjoy looking outside the window at the flakes coming down, or at the moment they're probably not, don't get unhinged, because it looks like we are going to go back to a little bit of a steady light snow pattern later this afternoon, and it may even continue into early tonight, and a little bit more accumulation on top of, Joe, I can't even believe it. Yesterday I posted, I was expecting for our area, or for the immediate area, a sugar coating to maybe an inch. Well, we certainly got more than a sugar coating. We got a lot more than just maybe an inch today. And again, it looks like it's not totally over just yet.
Yeah, I wasn't going to bring that up, by the way, just so you know.
What, the sugar coating to an
Yes,
inch?
I wasn't going to bring.
No,
I wasn't.
It happened.
I know.
It happened. Surprise, surprise. Thank you again. Thank you to Chuck Cardillo for hitting Super Chats. He says, thank you very much for all you both do. Hope your favorite team wins the Super Bowl. Joe, here's a funny story. I posted my prediction for the Super Bowl on my Facebook pages yesterday.
Right.
And just to let you know, I predicted Bengals 28, Rams 24. I have a certain methodology. I do this every year and post this on Facebook. Now, when I posted this yesterday, I said we fed all of the statistical data from both teams during this past season into the Rayovac computer. And we came up with this: 28 Bengals, 24 for the Rams. Would you believe that on my Facebook page, right underneath my prediction, there was a sticker or an announcement concerning COVID-19 and vaccinations? and I think what happened was the algorithm saw Rayovac, saw the word vac, and immediately went, okay, let's talk about vaccination.
How funny is that? Oh, that's hilarious.
Isn't that amazing?
That is hilarious.
That is so that's crazy.
Oh my God. That's funny.
It never happened, of course, in other years because we didn't have that. But now we had that this year with the vaccination thing, and it went right after that message, and boom, right there. And people are sending me a message here and comments. He said, "Why do you have a vaccination thing on your Super Bowl pick?" I said it must have saw VAC, Rayovac.
Right.
Some of you of a certain age may remember there was a battery. Maybe there still is, called Rayovac.
I think they're
batteries.
Still out there.
I said, yeah, the Rayovac. So the Rayovac computer and the algorithm, I guess, at Facebook said, "Oh, there it is, VAC vaccination."
Oh, that's so funny. That is really funny. Well, one time I put up a weather post one time, and Facebook banned the post because I used the word threat. So, like, for example, I don't know if it was a thunderstorm threat or a snow threat, or I couldn't. They banned the post, and I'm trying to figure out why. And I'm reading this, kept reading the headline, and then I said, "Oh wait, maybe it's the word threat." So I took the word threat out and I changed it to risk, and then it was fine. So you're at the victim. The algorithms. You're at a victim of non-human. Actually, to tell you the truth, sometimes you're better off because some of the teenagers that they have working over there apparently have no life experience. They just basically open up a book, and whatever if it checks these boxes, we take the post down. If we check these boxes, then it gets a warning, and so on and so on. So you can't win. You can't win. However,
our good friend on the chat board, Dennis Cassia, he and I, and also I just found out recently, Bill Goodman over the National Weather Service. We're all big and I know you are too, Joe, but we're members of the Honeymooners Facebook page.
Yes.
And one day, a while back, Dennis had quoted something that Alice's sister had mentioned regarding how she felt about all men, and he put that
Beasts!
on
They're
the
all
Facebook. On
beasts!
Facebook, yeah, exactly. They've all he said men are beasts, and he got thrown in Facebook jail, I think, for about a week because of making that comment. And it's just so silly. But that's the algorithm that they're working off of on Facebook.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Yes. Ken Musillo hitting a super chat, and Keith James II. Did you get Keith James before? I don't remember.
I have the four. We have four people at least on my list: Leon Probitsky, Ken Musillo, Keith James, and Chuck Cardillo. Thank you
Okay.
all
Thank you, Chuck.
for hitting super chat.
Thank you, Chuck. Okay, so I think it's time now for the executive producer to join the show so that we could go through a Cooking with Jeopardy, which we haven't done in quite a while, but because of all the weather we've been dealing with, these storms have been coming on weekends. So
hello, dear. It's your turn now. I'm calling her in to the studio.
Yes, please do.
Hello, are you there? Oh, there she is. Oh, here she comes. Here. He's on.
Hello.
Good morning.
Oh, there we go.
Well, it's actually.
Can you hear me?
I hear you. I got to make sure I'm
Okay.
far enough back from my computer because I get feedback if I get too close. Welcome. Nice to see you. Has been quite a while since we've done one of these. This is another edition in the original, never duplicated, as the chairman Scott Briller is putting, never ever duplicated Cooking Briller Jeopardy. And the category, of course, today being Super Bowl Sunday is the Super Bowl. So we'll start with the first question.
Right.
What are the 10 top foods? Actually, the only question. No, it is just the first question. Okay. The 10 top foods consumed during the Super Bowl, non-drinks, by the way. So 3 out of 10 will for a safety. 5 out of 10 gets you a field goal, and 7 out of 10 will get you a touchdown.
Okay, here we go. Most popular Super Bowl foods. Let's see. Chicken wings.
Number 2.
Okay, that's number 2. Okay, let's see. Guacamole. Has to be on the list somewhere. No.
What would you serve with guacamole?
Like chips and dip, or corn chips,
or
guacamole usually goes with chips.
What specific chip?
Corn chips.
Another name for it.
Oh gosh, you're making this too hard. Tortillas.
Okay.
No.
No. If you went into Applebee's, heaven forbid, you would order a plate of the Spanish name for it.
Yeah, I can't think of it. Well, forget it.
Nachos.
I can't think of it. I know what you're
saying.
Nachos.
Yes.
Okay.
But you got chips and dip in there,
right.
and you got nachos. Nachos. Not a tortilla, but a.
Not a tortilla, but a. Oh my gosh.
You don't have Mexican food very often, do you?
No, we don't.
The smaller version.
My daughter is probably upstairs laughing.
Right, you could have
I think she was just at the Maya Cafe the other day.
Right, you could have you could have a soft version of this or the harder, crispier version of it.
Well, and
you fold it in half. It's folded in half.
Half. Yes. So what is that called?
Oh my God, a taco.
Taco. taco. Okay. Oh.
All right, look. So
I knew I was going to fail
oh
miserably
my
at
God.
this.
So
Everybody's at home laughing.
we knocked off chips and dip. We knocked off wings. We knocked off nachos with a little
Yes.
help from me, and we knocked off
Yeah.
tacos. Okay. Okay. So now that leaves us with 6 others.
6 others. Okay. Pizza.
Number
A lot of people
3.
have pizza. Do we have, what was number 1?
Chips and dip.
Oh, okay. So now what else is popular? Things like a fried chicken
No.
or ribs.
No.
No? Okay. I think my daughter-in-law is making ribs today and she's buying fried chicken. So
I mean, it works. It works for me, but it's not on the list.
yeah. Oh gosh. All right. Yeah, what else could there be? Things like I don't know, cheese and crackers.
Number 5.
Really? Okay, good. Nuts.
No.
No, nuts. Uh, oh gosh. I don't know. Help. Give me
Okay,
a hint.
so
What else could...
okay, so you could have a hot dog, or you could have a.
All right.
If,
Yeah, I guess in the warmer. See, we're up here. We're not going to really have hot dogs
Right.
because we're not going to really turn on the barbecue.
Right,
or
but
anything,
but
other
if you were
places,
having a barbecue,
Yeah.
you might offer an option.
hamburgers.
Thank you, burgers.
Hot dogs and hamburgers.
Okay.
Yeah.
You put
Okay.
Italians put
Or sliders.
right. Italians put
Yes.
this in their sauce. Put these in their sauce, I should say.
Put these in their sauce
For Sunday.
I don't know
What do they make for Sunday?
for Sunday. Yeah. Oh, meatballs.
Meatballs,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, that's something I've done already too.
Okay,
Meatballs.
and
or doobie meatballs.
you might go out. You might a big sandwich.
Oh, a sub.
Yes, a sub or a hero. And the last one, which I'm
Right.
not going to. Let's see, I could give you a clue on this. So on the last one, it could be. It's hard to make okay. Hey, how about this? A sleeping pork hot dog.
Sleeping pork hot dog. Oh my gosh. I don't know.
A sleeping pork hot dog that would like to be
Like pork sliders or shredded pork
No,
or
no.
barbecue pork.
I was trying to
Or
get
no,
you
you know,
pigs in a blanket.
Sausages. Oh,
Pigs in a blanket. All
Yeah.
right, let's go to the next question. During
Yeah.
a Super Bowl party, the average person consumes how many calories? Okay.
Oh.
18.
Oh my God.
The average person
Yeah.
consumes how many calories? 1,800, 4,700, 8,000. That's over 2 pounds you would
Oh.
gain, or 17,000.
Well, I would hope it's more like 1,800 because that's a whole day's worth of calories,
Yeah, but it isn't.
right?
Yeah, but it's not.
That's not the answer. 4,700?
8,000.
Really?
8,000.
8,000?
Yeah, that's what's there. That's a
Oh,
lot.
these must be men, big eaters.
Yeah, I would imagine.
But not
What percentage?
not me.
No. What percentage of people who watch the Super Bowl call out sick the next day? That's an interesting one. 3, 6, 9, or 12.
Percent, you're saying? At least 9%,
And that
maybe even 12.
no, it's actually
And I think it'll be more.
it's actually
it's what?
it's actually 6.
6%. I bet you it's going to be more than double that tomorrow.
Oh, I'm
You know
sure.
why? It's Valentine's Day.
Yes.
That's why.
What unless they want to get away. What percentage of Americans what percentage of Americans order takeout for the Super Bowl? Is it A 7, B 10, C 15, or D 33? Excuse me, D 33.
I would say at least 10%.
It's actually 15.
15%.
And Super
All
Bowl
right.
bonus, what percentage of people just watch the Super Bowl for the commercials? 11, 17, 25, or 43?
Oh, I'm going to say, yeah, maybe even as high as 43%.
It's 25.
It is 25.
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
I bet for
you need,
women, it's probably more like 43.
you clearly need time to spend. You clearly need to spend more time at Mexican restaurants to get yourself familiar
Guess
with the
so.
plea. Yes. So have your daughter take you out to a nice Mexican place so she could you know put taco, soft shell taco, hard shell taco, nachos, all the rest of it. So anyway,
Hey, I prefer mamas.
no, I get it, I understand, and I don't eat out very often, but I actually do I like Mexican food.
Mhm.
I do like guac and nachos and all the rest of it. So look, have a great Sunday.
Uh-huh.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, you do the same.
And
So let's bring in Mr. Rayo again,
yes,
and he'll say goodbye to everyone and wish everybody a happy Sunday and happy snow shoveling if it's outside your door and you have to do that. We have to do some ourselves. Not a whole, otherwise we won't be able to leave our driveway.
nope. And the sun came out here just about the same time that the sun came out over there. It's interesting how that happens a lot.
That's true. Okay, it's your turn. Come on over here. He's listening to the delay
Oh,
inside.
okay. So he's about 30 seconds behind. Gotcha.
No, it's only about 10 seconds on the app. Okay, just leave it. And we're gonna switch out. And happy Sunday. Enjoy the Super Bowl, everybody.
All right. Happy Sunday to you too.
Is that still? Oh, yes. that's
Izzy,
still
I do.
Chuck
Izzy
Cardillo.
D, I do like kosher food. I do. I like all food, just to be honest.
Yeah. So, what do we have? We don't, I guess, have a show tomorrow night because of.
I got some personal things I got to take care of
last minute
tomorrow, so yeah,
personal
probably
Yes.
no show tomorrow night. So we'll be back on Tuesday, folks, at 7:30 Eastern time. Okay. Thanks for all the super chat hits. 106 likes, so we did make it over the top, which is great. And you have yourself a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you on Tuesday.
See you then, folks. Have a good one.
Bye.